Hey, welcome back to my channel, Treetop Flight, where I'm building the RANS S21 outbound plane. This is episode 22 in my series. In this episode, we put the header tank in, the fuel pump, and some of the gas lines. In some of my prior videos, you've heard me say these are not instructional videos. I'm a first-time builder. Clearly in this episode it shows up that these are not instructional videos. I make a couple mistakes. I misinterpret the directions. I put the tank in, I pressurize it, screw up, have to take the tank out, put the tank in, pressurize it, screw up, have to get that sump drain figured out. Didn't really ever figure that out. So I make a bunch of rookie mistakes, so it takes me a little longer than planned. And if you're watching this video as a way to kind of see what you need to do, make sure you watch the whole thing first, because the mistakes kind of come up and I got to fix them as I go along. But with that said, you know, it's a build. I'm a first-time builder. I'm enjoying the process. If these types of things discourage you, then you shouldn't be building a plane. This is just all learning. So with that, let's get that header tank and gas pump installed. The next step is to transfer drill from 3 tabs into your mounting plate. I use this hole finder again that I made. I've showed you this before. And then from there, this comes out and you've got a support angle. And the support angle is going to go underneath this tab here and underneath the tab there, and then there's going to be 2 rivets attaching it to your mounting plate, and then you've got to cut a notch in your angle to clear this stringer, this support stringer, and then you attach this to the plate and then attach the mounting plate into the plane. I did prime the end of that support stringer, or the ends. That's where they come in contact with the stainless steel tabs, and I primed the bottom of the fuel tank, header tank tray, because that also comes in contact with the stainless steel cage tubes. Okay, where I am with the header tank tray is the primer has dried on it. I measured out that stringer, that support stringer, and drilled holes in the support stringer so it hit each tab. I cut a small notch out of here and a larger notch out of the stringer that goes this way. Your stringer actually may go this way. I may have put this one in the wrong angle, but it's not critical. It's just a ballooning stringer. So I did cut the notch out of here. And then I clecoed the stringer to the tray, to the header tank tray, and I'm gonna match drill a couple holes in here, which is where the clecos and the rivets are going to go to continue the support. And I've also super glued the rubber edging onto the edge of the tray. And don't forget to prime the bottom of the fuel pump plate, as it is coming in contact with the cage. There are 4 nut plates that have to get riveted in. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are these little nut plates that go underneath the tabs. Because you have to cleco one side, that doesn't give you much room. I use this little piece of aluminum angle brace that lets me put it flush. I can bend the rivet, put my rivet gun on there, and still get a flush rivet. I've talked about this piece before, but use whatever method you can to get your rivet gun in there. But these 4 have to get riveted. Yeah, I think I found a slight error in the punching. This fuel pump gets mounted to this plate, this mounting plate. and then you put a bolt through here, through the nut plates that you've riveted on here. If you can see, I've got the front bolt in, but this back bolt is off by about 1/8 of an inch. It's not gonna, if I rotate this around, it's not going over the hole, and it's about 1/8 inch high. So I'm gonna drill out this nut plate, because I don't want to drill this. I'm going to drill out the nut plate, re-drill the hole for the nut plate, and then re-rivet it. I'll have to put these rivets in some different locations, and get that nut plate moved so it'll receive the fuel pump, because it's not going to fit this way. I guess when they just pre-printed this plate, they missed the measurement on it. That's the only thing I think of. So we'll go with that. I've reinstalled these nut plates under here just by twisting them a different direction and re-riveting them that 1/8 inch off they were. So this fuel pump mounted nicely onto the bracket. The next thing is to attach the filter, and they're saying you have to do what's called a short configuration. So this fitting, I've already loosened it, this comes out. There's an O-ring here that's going to go onto here, and then this is just going to become installed into here, and then there's a bracket that's going to wrap around and secure the filter onto that. The other thing is, I have a feeling I'm going to have to take this off. There's 2 wire connections to run the fuel pump, and the second one is going to be really hard to get in there, so I may have to take this off one more time to get the wires onto it, but it's just right now all it is the 4 bolts, and it'll lift right up, so that's not a problem. This is the fuel pump in what's called the short configuration. This just went right in with that gasket or O-ring on there. This looks like I'm going to be okay. I trimmed this plate just a little bit, so I've got room to hook my antenna up here. There's a servo that goes over here, but it looks like I've got more room on this side. So probably by lucky guess by where I place these. If I had placed these any further outboard, I would have been in a lot of trouble. So I think I got away with the placement of this antenna. But before you place your antennas, definitely think this through. With that servo coming up this side, I'm not sure that's the best place for it, but for now it's going to work for this plane. Okay, it's in there now with the strap around it and through that last nut plate, and the hole marking here is going to give just a slight curve up to this fuel filter. So I'm okay with the holes where they've marked. So the next thing I'm going to do is work on the fittings for the header tank.
Well, you can never stop thinking about this. I think I've got the gauge. As a matter of fact, I know I've got the low fuel sensor and upside down. When that flap goes up, just like a toilet bowl, that's going to make the connection. And when the tank is full, that flap will be up all the time. And when the fuel level gets low, that will then drop the fuel flap down. That's actually opposite of what you want. You want it flipped over so that when it's full, it's holding that connection away. And then when the fuel level drops down, it makes the connection. Pretty obvious, but I had to think it through. I'll just flip it around, no big deal. And I also hooked it up to my meter just to make sure that when the connection was made, there was no resistance with ohms, and that when the connection was separated, there was resistance, and in fact, it passed the ohms reading. So my wires are good. I get 0 resistance through both wires when the contact is made. So we're in good shape. I just got to flip it around. One other quick comment about hooking up the low fuel light. You notice the light is operated off the ground, and that you put a breaker in that goes to your power. Obviously, they don't want power running to the gas tank, so they're using the ground to complete the circuit, and the switch is controlled by the ground, which is not that uncommon, but just an observation. The way I run these fittings and snake them is I take a wire, I think it's about a 14 gauge wire. I put the fitting and the O-ring on it. And at the end of this wire, I've got a little nut so it won't go through the O-ring. And then I've just attached some string so I can pull it back out. I feed the wire into the tank, get it over to the hole,
use some hemostats and grab it, pull it out, and then I just pull it in until this becomes flush, lock it in with a nut and all the other fittings because it needs another rubber washer, a metal washer, and then a reverse nut. Tighten it in, and then I just use my pull string and pull the feed line back out. I really struggled getting this tank in and out even before I put the fittings on. So I'm pretty sure there's no way I was going to get, there's no clearance here. And if you come to the back, there's no clearance here. So getting this tank out with the fittings on, or getting the tank in with the fittings on, wasn't going to happen. So I put the tank in and then attached the fittings after the tank was in with the sealant. But now I need to pressure test it. So I've got a cap. I'm going to cap these two ends and then hook up some kind of pressure system into this one so I can pressure test it with the tank in the plane. I've seen other builders that have done it outside, but I'm just not sure how they got the tank back into the plane with the fittings on. So I'm going to move forward this way, and I'm assuming I can do my pressure test with it sitting in the plane. And then I've got to figure out how to get my sump drain on, which goes down on this back corner. So I'll take it one step at a time, and we'll see how it goes. Once again, my faithful assistant is making sure I'm doing my work right and keeping an eye on me and also keep me company. What I'm doing to pressure test the header tank is I took one of the fuel lines and I looped it and attached it to my two fittings. Then in the bottom fitting, I attach just kind of a hose that I clamped onto the fitting there. And this is my kind of contraption that takes my pressure gauge down to a hose. And I just put about 3/4 of a pound of pressure in it. The tank started to swell a little bit, so that was my indication that that was enough pressure. Then I am taking leak detect bubbles detection, and I'm just swabbing around all the openings, including the cap, just to see if I see any bubbles anywhere. I took a mirror and looked underneath to look for bubbles underneath these fittings. And then I'll leave it there, and I'm going to watch my pressure. It's up about 3/4 of a pound, and I'll leave it there for a couple hours and see what we've got. But initially, it's been about 5-10 minutes since I got the camera and started filming it. Looks like we're good on the pressure test, but we'll wait. Okay, a little gotcha in the header tank installation, and I'm not sure how I'm going to fix it at this point, but just I'll point it out. They start with mounting that plate, that header tank plate, and they actually have you rivet it down to the frame. Then you put the fittings in. Then you install the fittings into the tank. Then they have you perform the leak test. And then you put these tank mount channels in and use the large hose clamp to secure the tank. And this is all using this diagram. So all's well and good with the following instructions, except use these large hose clamps is step 6 after everything else is done. The problem is I've got the tank in and these hose clamps won't go underneath because of all these stringers and supports, and you actually riveted a tank support. I can't. I've been screwing around with this for about 2 hours, and I can't. This one I finally got from up here and be able to thread it down, but I can't get this second one anywhere close to going in under here. As I jam it in, I try and go up, I lift it up, I try and go down. I just can't get it to go under here, and it's supposed to fit right here. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but there's no way these things are going to go under there. I did check some videos, and these guys put the straps down first before they riveted that plate down, that mounting plate, which is, in my opinion, the only way you can do it. My problem is I've got all these fittings on, I've got the tank pressure tested, and I can't get the tank out now with these fittings on. See, it's not going to clear here. The fitting's not going to clear here, so I've got all these fittings on. I cannot get this tank out to try and get underneath that plate without taking all these fittings off. A real frustration. I'm not exactly sure I'm going to fix it at this point, but make sure you get those straps on underneath that mounting plate before you rivet that mounting plate down to the frame tabs. My next step is to try and get this sump fitting in, and I've got a tail dragger, so it's the aft location. I'm able to locate the center of the tank, that sump part of the tank, with a line on that side and a line on this side. I've got that location. I can use calipers and measure that center point from this rivet, so I could drill from the bottom in the center of this sump based on the measurements that I've got with the tank in place. The problem is I can't move the tank out with these fittings. The tank's not coming out. I can lift it up if I need to get it away from the floor, but it's not coming out again unless I take all the fittings out and retest everything, but then I'm in the same location. So I can drill the hole coming up from the bottom. It's supposed to be a 3/4 inch hole for that last fitting. And the directions don't give you a lot. Really, all they tell you is to mark the outside of the tank using the figure. Here's the figure. They tell you to mark the tank for the sump drain. They give you the measurements. They tell you the hole needs to be, it's going to be a 1/2 inch total, 1/4 inch on either side from the largest part of the bulkhead. I measured the size of the nut, which is 1 1/4. So the bulkhead skin size will be 1 1/2, but I need a 3/4 inch hole through the tank for the fitting. Yeah, I got to figure this one out. I don't have a good solution here. The directions here tell you to set the header tank in place. Well, I've done that, and per the directions up here previously, it's all strapped in. It tells you to use the straps and to strap it in, which is the other struggle that I just talked about. Now it tells you to set the header in place, transfer the marks to the belly, which I've done, remove the tank, and project the marked lines at 90 degrees to the tank. Well, I can't remove the tank. We've already decided that's not going to happen. I've got the marks, and with calipers I can measure them without moving the tank. Then it says drill a number 40 to the intersection. I could drill the 40, set the header tank back into place, and drill a 30. Well, with the header tank in place, I can drill the 30 in that mark. Use a step drill to get to the size of the bit, which would be the 3/4 inch hole. And then that's the end of the directions. It really doesn't tell you how to get the nut on or anything else. So, okay. I think my only option is to drill up from, measure it with calipers, find the center, and just drill straight up through the skin and through the tank, 3/4, get that nut on, and then drill this bottom skin to the 1 1/4. I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to drill in a number 40 hole, and then if it's not exactly dead center when I take the tank out, I can adjust it up to that 3/4 of an inch if I have to move it a little bit, but I think I can get it pretty close to dead center. In order to get the tank out, I'm going to have to remove these blue fittings. There's no other way around it. I can re-pressure test it after I put it in. I've pressure tested for this, but when you remove these fittings, you take a chance of moving these a little bit, which can create a leak. So I will take these out in order to get my tank back out. That's also going to allow me to slide my strap underneath. I may have to drill out that plate from the rivets to get the strap underneath, but I can't think of any other way to do it. So that's going to be my strategy. Not a huge amount of work, but that'll be my strategy for fixing this mess. Thanks. Step 1 of the fix is done. I pulled the rivet out here, and I was then able to feed the strap underneath. So that's the strap that I need to get done. This one was already there, so we're on our way. Okay, I've got the tank back in. The straps are located where they're supposed to be. If I didn't mention before, but I will mention it because I saw it on another video. Dad and Chad had the same problem. Sometimes when you lift this tank out, this back corner gets caught on this plate. And I struggled with it 2 or 3 times and actually took a gouge out of the bottom of the tank, a small gouge. Dad and Chad did the same thing, and they warned that you actually have to take a screwdriver or something and hold down the plate underneath here when you lift the tank out, because some of them catch when you get it out, and you're pulling it and you're working it, and you're not figuring out why it's not coming out. And sure enough, it's caught on the edge of this mounting plate, so you got to kind of hold it down. So now I'll put the valves back in. This valve was in, but I've got to replace the valves in the back. I've got the sump underneath. If you can see under here, let's see where I've got, you can see how it comes through here. And I'll put the valves back in, or the fittings, and do another pressure test now. Now that I've got it out, I've got to start it with another pressure test. And assuming it passes the pressure test, I'll strap everything in and hook up the line up front. Okay, a final shot of the tank. I've got it in. I've got the valves hooked up to the fuel pump. I've got these channels in, the straps are in. I retested the pressure. I've got these back valves in. Got the cap safety tied. Underneath, let's see if I can get under here. You can see the valve coming down, and they've got a fairly long, that's the fuel sump valve. I've seen some others with another option on there. You can get a different one and a shorter one, but that's what they sent with the kit. That's on there and pressure tested. So, tank is in, fuel pump is connected. I've got some room for my antenna. That was a struggle, and I'm glad we're moving on. Well, that's probably a good place to end the video. That segment took me 27.1 hours with all the mistakes, and the redos took probably longer than it should have. That brings my build time to 763.6 hours. In the next video, we're going to get the battery box, gasculator done, more fuel, more firewall forward, the starter solenoid, the master solenoid. I think I can get that all into one video. That all goes pretty quick. But all in all, things are going well, enjoying the journey, and thanks for watching. Remember, dream it, just build it.